All right. And hello. Hello and welcome to Ignore All Previous Instructions, a podcast about culture and programming. My name is Pam and Sarah and I'm here with Sarah Withee. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing? Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, what kind of computer things you're into.
Sure. Sarah Withee, as you mentioned, right now I'm the head of backend development for a state government agency trying to make government software better. On my free time, I work on tech side projects. I mentor an all girls robotics team that's been to world championship several times. Um, I'm constantly reading like tech news and stuff like that, and can very easily be dragged on like tech ethics, etc. side
Ooh.
tangents on things. You may or may not want me on your episode, depending on where this conversation goes.
Amazing. If I reference the movie Billy Madison, would you get that reference?
Probably not. Not because it's Billy Madison, but just because I'm generally bad at movie references.
Oh, it's just that there's this. So when I think about like tech ethics or particularly AI ethics now, I really think about the part of the show where they're playing like a game of Jeopardy and the villain of the movie is foiled when the category business ethics is chosen because he has no ethics. And it's like
Nice.
this like fist shaken air, like business ethics moment.
No.
No, not
Nobody
AI
thinks about
ethics. No
ethics.
one knows about ethics. We've only been thinking about it since ancient times. How could we ever conceptualize morality? Um, so
The
what
the
are
other
oh,
day
go
I had
ahead.
stumbled across like my philosophy class notes from like community college 20 years ago, and
Oh,
I'm just like, "Oh,
amazing.
wow. Yeah.
Oh,
I forgot there
amazing.
was a whole world of like philosophers that used to
Who
just
who
sit
who
around and
who did
philosophize.
did things. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there were other things inside. I mean, they did have running water, but
True, true.
other things lacking in that society. But I don't know. What have you been thinking about in ethics lately?
Oh gosh. One of the recurring things is AI, obviously because I think everybody's talking about it for everything. But it's funny because I think when you think about like every company is trying to add it. But
Yeah.
one thing is they're either like really adding it, as in they actually have models that have been trained on data and blah, 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 and are actually
Mhm.
applying to their product. But then there's
Mhm.
also AI, as in like, I don't know, there's 20 people behind the scenes and they're making intelligent decisions about, things. And we slapped AI because it sells better.
It does sell
Um,
better. Do you think that they're calling
well,
those people's intelligence artificial?
good question. Ooh, I don't know.
Oh
But it's
man.
funny that you just said
Hey.
it sells better because I was also just
Yeah.
reading an article a couple days ago that is actually saying the more they like slap AI on things, the more people aren't interested in it. And I'm like, that's fascinating.
Mm. Oh, interesting. We should share that link in the show notes. I'd be interested in checking
Oh
that
yeah,
out.
I can drag that back out.
Um, there's probably like a marketing philosophy that ties into that. At a certain point, a word
Mhm.
ceases to have meaning if you've just used it to mean everything.
I feel like there's that trend in tech where like every year or
Mm.
two or three there's like big buzzwords slapping on
Yeah,
everything and everything's great. Like for
hype
a long time it
cycle.
was just like
Yeah,
cloud it all. Everything's in the cloud. It's better because it's
cloud.
in the cloud. And
Yeah,
now,
the
the
cloud is
the
just someone
term
else's
almost
computer.
doesn't really mean
Yes,
anything. Yeah, yeah, it's somebody
right.
else's computer. Um,
Mm.
but and then there was like all the blockchain nonsense, like we're gonna do
Crypto.
everything on the blockchain. It'll be better. It'll be great. And then like nothing is on the blockchain almost.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting waves. And so I've been very curious because AI does seem like it could be a legitimate tool, but the fact we're trying to slap it on literally everything, I don't think makes it a valid tool anymore. You know?
Yeah, I think if I guess let's define large language learning models, or let's pretend to define large language model. Like I don't work in AI. You don't work in
Yeah, I
AI.
do not work in AI.
And but so just for the readers at home, just thinking that when all these things, like when these things are labeled AI, they're most of the time, I would say 90s, we're talking about large language learning models, which
Yeah.
is, I would, well, this does not simplify it because it still assumes it, but like it's like an overgrown Markov chain. Um,
Yeah.
it's
The thing the average reader knows about is Markov chains.
the average reader knows about Markov chains. Anyway, man, we'll link to some statistics. Anyway, but so that, I guess what a large language model is, that it's trained on. So I guess what a model is what you're doing is you're putting in an input and getting out an output, right? And so then what a model is you've trained it so that if I hand you this, I expect you to give me that. And then you've given it a whole bunch of data to try to hopefully move toward a world where it gives you things that you want, so that if you feed it an image of an apple and you're expecting the word apple to come out, that you get it. And so that you train it by giving it, 100, 1,000, a million pictures of apples and saying this is an apple, and then the model learns that that is an apple. Is that
Yeah.
vaguely right, you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
And I think
I
with
think
learning
so.
model or large language learning models is the idea that statistically certain words appear next to other words more common in
Right.
sentences and books and newspapers and whatever. And so
In
if
pretty
you
much every
slap
language
enough
too.
of those in there, you can generate the statistics of 90% of the time, the word
What will be
uh,
coming
you know,
next,
yeah,
which
worker
is what
has the
a
word the
Markov
in front
change
of it.
does.
And yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so you build that out enough, you can like statistically generate things that sounds legitimate. And yeah,
Yeah, something that I heard recently that I have no helpful references for, but may be interesting to talk about, is I heard that language learning models, so LLMs, are one of the ways that they are getting dumber, because there's more ways that they're getting dumber and hallucinating, is that most LLMs are trained in English. And
yes.
as they are trying to train LLMs in different languages, because there are many, many, many other languages in this world other than English,
Hmm.
they are not doing so hot. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I have heard that as well. And I partly wonder if it's because, as an English speaking person, if I was to try and train models on other languages, I would probably struggle a bit to find enough training data
Mm,
because I'm not as familiar with French books. So like, oh, I
hmm
could probably go to a French library and probably find a bunch of French books. But, like I don't know where the bookstores are. I don't know where the newspapers are, things like that. So I would have to spend extra time to try and track those down. But then
mm,
also I don't know what looks like good French versus bad French, right?
right. Or,
Who's
you know,
speaking good formulated sentences. Like I would expect a newspaper to be good French, and I would expect
mm,
Reddit to maybe have less good French. Um, and then
I mean,
like
you,
Urban
okay.
Dictionary to be just like trash. And
Yeah. I
you
just had a
know,
thought. Here's a made up theory. What do you think if some of it is because then you're also you're limited often to the field of um, computable, like stored as text that a computer can understand
mhm,
data. I mean, we have languages that only made it to Unicode in the last handful of years.
yeah,
So like the limitations, like exactly what you're saying, but even more so, that the limitations of the data that can be accessed in order to train a model is just such a narrow subset of the culture and information that is available. I think that's
mhm,
pretty interesting.
yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
And as English speaking people, we just don't know those as well. So it's like you have to
Right.
find trained people that know the languages and know how to like decipher the material and look at the material and find the material, but then
And the
also
hardest
like
part,
slap them into a tech project and be like, "Hi, you person that
exactly.
knows weird, obscure
you know,
Asian language,
right.
go figure out
Language
how to
language
like
with,
slap this into a tech project.
50,000 living speakers. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly what you just said is like, and then you have to convince them that they should spend some of their wild and precious life helping a computer write things for you.
Yes.
Like a thing that perhaps, hear me out here, doesn't need to be as big of a problem as it is.
Write me a Shakespeare play about my cat involving my best friend in this weird obscure language that few
Oh, well,
people know.
never mind.
And
You
it's
just
like
told me.
it's
I mean,
not
we
going to
absolutely
really,
we need to get that
yeah.
funded. Yeah. We need to get that
But
funded
like it's
yesterday.
probably not going to work as well because you don't have enough of that Shakespeare
Right.
material in that language to, I don't
Right.
it's
We need funding. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's every episode. We just have a new pitch for funding. So
Your
Shakespeare
podcast
cat
has just
play
shifted
in
very
niche
quickly.
so quickly. Went real hard. Um, but yeah, what else were you? We kind of are you let me tangent us to kind of define the space a little bit. But what in terms of like ethics are you thinking about?
Um, Part of it is where I work, they're very curious to use ChatGPT, but find ways to use
Mm.
it, which is kind of like interesting conversation to talk about,
Specifically,
especially in
ChatGPT, like
government.
OpenAI,
Yeah.
or
Yes.
ooh, okay, all
Yes.
right.
Um, Partly because generally you want government stuff to be fairly secure, and so we have an enterprise version of it that we're
Yeah.
testing out that's isolated from like the general public's chat gpt, but also
Okay.
where can you put that in? I mean, obviously it's just like, oh, you're requesting some sort of service, so therefore you have a chatbot in the corner, but where else could you use it besides that? So one of the
Mm.
interesting experiments that people are actually running is just like, hey, just give them chat gpt and see what they do with it, which is kind of like cool. It might result in weird things. They're definitely just like, don't throw this in production yet. But, what if you write your emails with it? What if you're trying to
So you're giving
summarize
it
documents? What if
to
you're,
so the idea is to give it to staff members of the government, not to the general public.
yeah, yeah, to the staff
Okay.
members?
I missed I was like, I thought you were saying that we couldn't have universal basic income, but we could have universal basic chat GPT. And I was like, that I have a significant problem with.
Give it to
And
the masses. No,
give it
no,
to the
no, no,
masses.
no,
Oh my
no.
gosh, you don't
It's
need health insurance, but what if you ask chat GPT?
how do
That's
I
what I would
get
ask.
health insurance when I've been
How
declined by my, yeah,
can you get me health insurance that's not dependent on my job? Um, okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds like an interesting way to do the pilot.
which
I mean,
is
it's
kind of
also
interesting.
yeah, I think it's especially, I mean, lately, I've recently had some like organizing projects where I did some forms, and
Mhm,
it's been a while since I've done a form that was open to the general public.
mhm.
And I'd it's also been years, but digested some of the various talks on how to design good forms from a UX experience
Yeah.
from various conferences. And what I remembered was my form was super short, and almost every question was open ended.
Mm,
Like it didn't have multiple
yeah.
select, because what I've
Yeah.
learned from every kind of form design is anytime you're trying to narrow the space, you're limiting the kind of information people can give you. And that's what your
Mhm.
pilot made me think of, is that rather than limiting the ways people can use it, let's see how they use it.
Yeah. But
Have you designed the metrics on how you're going to measure that yet?
we have a research team that's doing the digging, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
much about like their specifics of uh, what their metrics are, how they're doing the research. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just been like something I've kind of been like watching from the
Right.
side a
Afar.
little bit.
Yeah. It's a cool
And one
project.
of the things I do think about is like there's a lot of language on websites. It's just like, you have to fill this out correctly according to section 508.4, the
Mm-hmm.
subsets of the whatever regulations, like
Yeah.
nobody knows what that is and they're not going to look it up.
Okay.
How do we paraphrase that to say, like, make sure you fill this out, you know, according to this law that says blah blah blah, like summarize it in
Mm,
much simpler language. And like I think that's kind of a cool use case of how do we make things more approachable by
mm-hmm.
maybe getting the large language model to simplify things as we
Mm,
go into the design process of different things.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see the results.
Yeah.
So,
So that's one kind of cool thing I'm very curious about to see is um, that. I'm definitely like a little bit of the naysayer off to the side because there's some people who just like, I'm saying like, oh, I'm working on a database thing. Have you put ChatGPT in it? No, I'm not going to.
no, I shall not. Wait,
So
do you actually get that question?
I've
Are you
gotten
serious?
sometimes, yeah,
Oh my god. Wow.
people that are just like, can you throw ChatGPT on weird scenario? And I'm just like,
Wow.
no,
No,
I'm not. I
yeah,
don't
at
I
work,
don't
I'm
trust it
actively
to do that.
hostile. So,
But so there is a little part of me that's just like, hi, somebody needs to be a slight skeptic, and that's going to be me. I'm perfectly happy
yeah.
doing that. But also,
Yeah.
like, I do legitimately want to see what comes out of this. And
Right.
is there applications we can apply it to simplify things so users can use it better, design things so people can use them better, pull out interesting insights from things that are happening somewhere. I think those are valuable in ways
Mm-hmm.
that governments kind of want to do things but aren't really aware of how to do them sometimes. Like our group is full of technologists. We know how to do that. But
Yeah.
other groups usually aren't. Like the
Right.
Department of Agriculture usually doesn't have like a whole bunch of technologists laying around. And
Mm, maybe
that
they
that's where
should.
I'm
Um,
well, obviously all of them should, but
oh,
um
yeah, for our job security, they all should. Um,
yeah. But
yeah.
that's kind
Oh, go
of
ahead.
where I think it's interesting to like see how we can integrate that in.
Yeah. I think that so here where I think AI is what's different this time from other hype cycles to me is a bit that that thing where Pam is like, oh, obviously a Markov chain. Like normal people don't know what a Markov chain is, and that is a very very reasonable stance. Uh, but normal people do know what ChatGPT is now,
Yeah.
and I think that is what I think makes this hype cycle different to me. I do so what do I use? I use Copilot. Oh, a cat
Hmm.
has appeared.
A cat has appeared.
Great,
Thank you for
as
rubbing the
promised.
microphone for me. Yes.
Yes. So yes, on video there is a cat. Which one is this? Is that Rorschach?
This is Rorschach. Yes.
Yeah. And so so I do use Copilot, and the things that it's helped, so Copilot being that's what it well it's GitHub, but it's Microsoft, so it's integrated into my editor. And the main things that it does is I do a bunch of React programming these days, and it fills out like the React filler stuff that I have to write anyway, but
Hmm.
it just saves me time. So it's been pretty nice. And sometimes
Yeah.
I sometimes ask Copilot questions like, I want to do this, and then I'll describe a technical approach, like or like a function or something, and then I'll say, tell me why it's a bad idea. And then because that's like I guess it's a rubber duck, like the rubber duck strategy of I don't I need to talk to other people, but really if I just talk into the air I get a lot of the same results of asking someone questions, the secrets to being a senior engineer or a staff engineer, or
Yeah.
what's going to come tangent, what's going to come after staff engineer. We had to like I don't know, they're going to invent a
Uh,
new thing.
uh, or bronze engineer, silver
Oh
engineer,
yeah, right,
platinum engineer,
we start meddling.
upper
Yeah,
level elite
bronze.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bronze,
I'm just
silver,
thinking
gold,
airline tiers at
platinum.
the moment. Yeah.
Right, diamond level
Oh yeah,
engineer.
of course, diamond. How could I forget?
Yeah, my next title, I'm a diamond engineer. But oh wait, no, diamonds are bad. I forgot. Um, ethical diamond
No, no,
engineer,
no.
ethically
Just the
sourced.
particular way that we mine the diamonds are
The
bad. The diamonds
yeah,
themselves are not bad.
if we mined it because some of the blockchain is green now, so like we mined them like safely, and they're green. So anyway, the green
Yes.
source, sustainably sourced diamond engineer. Uh,
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
but yeah, so rubber
Where
ducking. So
were
that I
we?
use Copilot to rubber duck. Huh?
I said, oh, where were we? Yeah.
Oh, where were
Rubber,
we? Where
rubber
were we?
ducking with Copilot. Yes, go on.
Yeah, it's Copilot. Yes, this is just a conversation among diamond level engineers, and so, um, but yeah, so that's how I use these things in my day to day. I also really like so for things that aren't work and when I want to, so I because also I think that LLMs and ChatGPT have accelerated the uselessness of online search. Like my usefulness as a diamond level engineer used to be my ability to Google and or DuckDuckGo things. So my
Yeah.
ability to ask the internet questions and find answers. And LLM or like search doesn't work anymore because it's full of hallucinations from these LLMs. And so now I circle around and I have to ask the LLM my dumb question. And something that I really like is so DuckDuckGo, I don't know if you've seen this, DuckDuckGo has
Yeah.
a AI chat feature so that you can ask it questions to, and it has what? It has GPT, Gemini, and it has a few of the LLMs. And so you can ask it questions and it won't store your data or use it to train the
Mhm.
models. And that is
Well, I
pretty
also kind of like it. It's an option. It's just
mm,
like at the top. It's just like I could try to generate an answer for you if you like. Click here to do that.
at the top of.
Like search result pages. Like for
Oh,
me,
oh,
it
oh,
it,
oh, oh, oh.
it doesn't
And
automatically do it.
in what
It's just
browser?
like a box at the top. Firefox usually.
Oh, okay. Or what search engine, I guess is what I meant.
Oh, DuckDuckGo.
Oh, on DuckDuckGo. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
But I
I
like
really
it's
like what they've
not
been
like
doing lately.
automatically trying to provide the answers. It's just like I can
Mm.
ask it. If I search for something and then
Oh.
I click the button, like, yeah, let AI generate an answer for
Oh, I
me.
haven't tried that yet. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
And
Yeah,
I
because
kind of like
whereas if
that.
you use Google, it automatically does it,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Google's just like,
here
we're
is
going to
your
find
answer
all the
list.
answers for you, regardless of whether they're
They
right
will
or
be
not. Yes.
wrong. We will find the answer whether you like it or not, and it
Yes,
will be
but they're
wrong.
still answers. Yes.
But you didn't ask for a right answer.
Yes.
You just implied it. Oh, oh man.
You were talking about AI hype cycles. And one of the things
Yeah.
I was thinking about is you were saying that people know what ChatGPT is now. And I would agree.
Yeah.
It's just like common
In
enough
popular
public knowledge,
culture.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think that people necessarily know what AI is
Oh
on
no,
its own.
I
I think
don't.
they
But
have now
yeah.
conflated AI with ChatGPT, but
But
there are
yeah,
different
when
types of
ChatGPT isn't
AI,
an
and
LLM.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm, yeah,
Say more on
LLMs
that.
are one type. Well, I've been playing with a tool at work called Azure's Document Intelligence, and the
Oh.
idea is you feed it a PDF or an image of a form, and
Mhm.
like it'll do optical character recognition. We've been doing that since like the 2000s or 90s or something.
Whatever. Old.
But it
Old.
will read through the form and pull out the pieces as individual fields. So if I have a whole form and it's full of name, address, phone number, email, do you want X, Y, or Z to
Yeah.
happen, or do you want whatever? It will actually pull those out as individual chunks for me. So I can actually store a name in a database and an email in a database and all those things without having to like manually separate it out myself. I'm
Oh.
like, that's kind of a cool application. That's not a large
Yeah.
language model, but
No.
that is AI, that it is
Is it? Is it
intelligently trained on
AI?
forms to figure out where
Oh,
the data
okay.
is. And the cool thing is,
Oh,
like, one
right.
of their examples is receipts.
Mhm.
If you think about a receipt,
Mm,
like almost they're all the same, but really they're not,
sure.
because what's formatted at the top sometimes is like an address, sometimes a phone number,
Mhm.
sometimes
True.
whatever about the
Name of the
store.
server
And then
sometimes, yeah.
there's a
Mhm.
set of
Mhm.
products. Sometimes it's a product and then quantity and then price, and then sometimes it's like SKU number and then product and then
Right, they're not
price
necessarily in order. There might be
and
a
different
discount,
things.
there might be a discount line, it might be indented, it might not be
Mhm.
indented.
Yeah, there might
Um,
be a subtotal, there might
mm,
be taxes, there might be
right.
fees, there might be
There might be a
whatever, and
tip.
then you have a
Yeah,
total, there might be a
yeah,
tip. And
yeah.
it's kind of cool that they have trained enough receipts that if you just feed it a random receipt and ask it to pull the data out, it will know what the products are and what the address is and what store you did and what how much you spent. And it's really kind of cool, I think. But I don't know that the general public would know. Like they might like if I showed that to them, they might think it's AI, but I don't know that they
Mm.
would necessarily think that's a tool that AI can be used for. They don't think it's just like
Mm.
applied statistics, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all just statistics. It's
it's
statistics all the
all
way
just
down. It's just a
statistics.
turtle named
Just
statistics on top of another turtle named statistics all the way down. In the end, secretly all statistics.
yeah.
And Markov. No, no, just kidding. No Markov chain joke.
But I think like that's not necessarily public knowledge, and I think that's where people might get confused. If I start slapping AI on everything, they might not really know what that means.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt that they know what it means. Because yeah, it has started to lose any sense of meaning. It
Hmm.
almost oh, you know what I just thought of is that I feel like that we actually hit, I believe we passed this tipping point, but there was this tipping point where every company became a tech company. Do you remember that? When
I
we
think
would
so.
go to
Yeah.
conferences and it was like suddenly you saw Capital One at conferences. I mean,
Hmm.
whatever, I shouldn't have named, but you see banks at conferences. I like their tech energy a little bit.
Assorted companies. Yes.
Assorted companies. So you see assorted companies and you see a fashion brand at a tech conference, or and they're all listing themselves as tech companies.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's like, because you have a website doesn't make you a tech company.
Hmm.
The government is not a tech company. Like, you work at the government, it's not a tech company.
Yeah.
Um, like, I think we can say that, but
ThreadUp. Are
that
they a thrift store or are they an online tech platform to enable people to resell their used clothes?
it's a,
It's like, well, I don't know.
well, yeah. Um, there's a point at which tech company kind of ceased to mean anything, that because they're all tech
Mhm.
companies. Like, you can't have a company in the contemporary era that doesn't involve technology, or it's real darn hard to.
Yeah.
When people do it, I find it charming. Like, a legit, like, I like it. And when I go to like a restaurant that doesn't have a website, or like, and you find the
Hmm.
hours by walking by it,
Yeah.
um I'm and so enchanted. um so in Philadelphia, this is mildly controversial to exactly a very niche part of Philadelphia. But so we have public pools. So Philadelphia has a large, like, I think possibly the most public pools per capita in the country. Maybe we
Interesting.
have like 70 something public pools. It's awesome.
Dang. Yeah.
They're open, like, they're free. You just go. You can go to the pool in the summer. It's amazing.
Hmm.
How do you know if the pool is open? Well, you walk to the pool and it is either open or not, a binary system.
The gate
And
is closed or the
the
gate
gate
is
is
open.
closed and
Mhm.
locked, or the gate is open. And there may be a schedule written on a whiteboard in hand that tells you when summer camp is, so that like, oh, like, I'm not allowed to go, like, that's when summer camp is, or when adult swim is, and what the schedule is.
Yeah.
So this is where I think my personal opinions on. I also kind of like this idea. I like and hate this idea of calling many, many things technologies, because just because it doesn't involve computers doesn't mean it's not a technology. Like, a
Yeah.
hammer is a technology. Like, so anyway, so infinite amount of tangents in the way we talk. Anyway, so
Yeah.
um, the there are people in Philadelphia, and this would have been me 10 years ago maybe, who say, well, why don't we get the schedules and opening hours for all the pools on the internet, so that you can go, and you can go, like, is this pool open? Can I go? And, like, you can go to a website and it's just right there. Like, would I, Pam, sincerely enjoy that service? Absolutely. Do I think it's a technology that Philadelphians need? Not really. That's my controversial
Yeah.
opinion. Is because these public pools are meant for the neighborhood and meant for the people in that community, where walking, like, the closest public pool to me is less than 10 blocks. So I can walk less than 10 blocks and I can see if the pool is open, and look at the schedule, mentally store it in my brain, and congratulations, I know when the pool is open. The technology has worked.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's just like something I think about, where I think about building this idea of building necessary technology, and not just technology that looks like everyone else's technology. this probably ties back into that AI thing too, that we're putting AI on things for no reason, when what is the technology's purpose, and who does it serve? Who's
Yeah.
benefiting from this technology? And does that's why I think when you talked about your pilot, or the pilot that you're observing about ChatGPT used by government workers, I think it's a great idea just to see how they use it. I think it would be
Mhm.
great and hilarious if the answer is not really. Like,
I mean, yeah, I would be also curious if you just like, yeah, we kind of used it to like write a few emails. I'm like, maybe that's
and then
not
it,
worth the cost, across
right,
the
for
whole
the cost of it,
state
like,
government system,
right,
but if they're just like, yeah, actually it's produced really smart analysis of things and
right.
blah
If
blah
it
blah.
saves
I'm
them a
like,
whole
well,
work
yeah,
day of
maybe it
their
might
week, that'd
be.
be amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. What's been on your mind lately? I don't know if you
um,
intended me to flip this back on you, but I'm doing it because
it's happening. What's been on my mind lately? Um, I think the AI stuff that you brought up was very much on my mind, and there's a few various like pop culture, like tech, and where we talk about things, the movements that I've been interested in. So I've been getting. I've messaged you this off this episode. You were shocked.
yes,
Um, so I've been
like
really getting into threads, like so
like the
a
Facebook
few,
threads.
yeah, so Meta. So a few years ago, Facebook slash Meta made a Twitter clone after the great. Do we have a name for when Elon Musk bought Twitter? Like that's a nice
I haven't
pejorative.
heard one. I would
I
call
haven't
it
heard of a
the like Muskification, perhaps.
Muskification
Uh,
and shitification. Um, and shitification is a general term.
mhm.
But when I mean in one of my chats, like one of the slacks that I'm in, we had a channel chronicling the demise of Twitter, and it's called Fail Whale. So we just watch Fail Whale. So we just
Yeah.
watch the Fail Whale fail over and over again. But so recently, this is kind of recent. So like the Twitter, so El Elmu hosted a political chat on Twitter, and it went down. We don't even have to talk about the politics part of it. Like, I mean, we could end up talking about that forever, but like just the tech side of it is that Elmu said, oh, because it was an audio channel. So Elmo said, hey, the audio channel's not working. Like this audio space isn't working because we're suffering from a DDoS attack, which is hilarious. Um, so a denial of service attack.
Yeah.
And
Assuming
I
that
don't
was
know
real. I don't know that I ever heard it actually was.
that what, oh no, there wasn't. I don't think there was a DDoS. There
Okay.
wasn't a
Yeah.
DDoS. Um, I
But
think it's a
DDoSes
little
are
more
great
like
excuses for when your technology goes down. Like, oh no, it's the hackers.
it's the hackers. Yeah, anytime I don't want to do my job, I'll just say that someone is because of DDoS, and or the blue screen of death. And someone will
Yeah.
be like, "You run a Mac," and it's like, "No, I got the blue screen. What are you talking about?" I was like,
The
CrowdStrike,
beach ball of
different
death, of
thing.
course. Yeah.
I got the beach ball of death. Oh, it is true. On a Mac, you get the beach ball of death. So, so next time CrowdStrike releases something, if they could attack Mac, so I don't have to work, um, and release a beach ball of death, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Uh,
CrowdStrike, you listening? We have
they're
opportunities for you. Yes.
they're always listening. So, uh, the but yeah, I just thought it was so funny, and that the since I mean I'm sure you did too, like knowing people who lost their jobs
Yeah.
when all that Twitter stuff went down, and watching the fail whale, and I've been waiting to reap the rewards of you can't fire most of your engineering staff and expect things to work.
Yeah. Didn't I hear? I don't know. Like 90% of staff got
Yeah,
fired, laid off,
it's at least
whatever.
80. At least
Yeah.
80. I heard 80. I would not be surprised if it was 90. It was, I mean, I know multiple people who were in like one of the first sweeps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about extremely talented, very, very smart engineers who were just, it was like a Tuesday. And it was like,
Mm.
hello, you don't have a job anymore because we decided that you actually don't need humans to run large scale distributed
we
systems, which is
we don't
completely
need
wrong.
multiple sets of organizations within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something I've been thinking about lately. Some of these, I've also really been thinking a lot about. I saw so, and again, there's a few tangents that'll come off of this. Is so I use a service that deletes my data from data
Yeah.
brokers on the internet, and on their newsletter, of like a newsletter or two ago, it said that in 2024, hey Vorshak, cyber attacks were up like well over 50%.
Hmm.
So, and I maintain a couple WordPress based websites just on the side,
Yeah.
and just volunteer. And I have word fence in front of them,
Hmm.
and I get an
Which is really a great
email.
plugin, by the way.
It's really great. Future sponsor. Um, but no, really great. Um, yeah, one time I learned about Word Friends when I found a website I volunteer for. I found that they'd been hacked, and I it was it's like I really wish I'd written a blog post, because the compromised code was in a rogue plugin, when I hunted it down. And I know I took screenshots, but I never wrote a blog post about it. But it was super interesting to hunt it down. I was like traveling, so I was like figuring out this hack at 11 p.m. in a hotel room, of like,
Yeah.
something bad has happened, and you know like ripping out the bad code and restoring the data, and
Hmm.
it was ugly. But yeah, WordFence is great. But I get emails from WordFence every week, every other week, about like your website is seeing an unusual amount of traffic. And I don't, these organizations I'm volunteering with could be targeted because of who they are, just because it's an activism and things like that.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't think it's that. I think it's just the sheer scale of attacks. That's something
Yeah.
I've been thinking about now, is the sheer
Yeah.
scale of attacks happening over the internet, and the incentives for cybersecurity, like that. I mean, this is why CrowdStrike is everywhere, right? It's because
Yeah.
it's I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot. I've also been thinking about scams a lot. So I've been thinking about these two topics are living rent free in my head a lot lately. You choose.
Yeah. And I think WordPress is interesting because it's still the most popular like content
Most
management
popular
system out
CMS on the
there.
internet. Yeah.
And no matter how much people bash it, it's still very useful, packed with features,
It's
themes up the
great.
wazoo, plugins up the wazoo. Yeah.
It's anything you
And
want to do,
but
you can do on WordPress. Yeah.
but because it's the most popular means
Yeah.
the most people
Comes
are going to
off.
try to attack it. If I'm
Right.
a bad person, what's a good avenue to try and attack as many sites as I can? Probably look for WordPress ones,
Right.
just
Same
start
as like
hitting
Windows.
domains and hit the
Viruses are written for
same.
Windows, not for Mac. Yeah.
Yeah. And like my site, I had it on WordPress like 5 years ago or something. I converted it over to
Hmm.
a static site. And
Yeah.
it's funny because if I look at the analytics of the site,
Do
there
they
are
look for
people that are
WordPress
trying
paths
to
to
hit
attack you?
like,
WP
say that
login.
again.
They're just
Yeah.
trying to hit the WordPress paths, or
WP
trying to hit
login
W
and hitting
login, W
admin
admin.
different
Yeah.
things, or hitting
Yeah.
weird pages that I know like are particular plugins that are vulnerable. And it's like, this is
Right.
fascinating. And it doesn't have to work on my site, because if you just hit as many domains as you can and hit those URL patterns and
Mm.
inject data as much as you can try to in each of these things, you're eventually going to hit them.
Yeah.
I can write a script to do it really easily across 10,000 sites, and I might get one or two that I can slap some malware on and make them pay me some money to get it off.
Right.
It's
That's yeah.
it's
That's
it's
that's exactly
simple,
it. Right.
and
It's easy.
it,
That's the incentive. You're totally right.
yeah, and I worry a bit when more site types start to get included in that. I don't think they'll
Mm.
stop hitting WordPress sites, but if they start to hit other types of content systems or other systems and just start like broadly trying to attack
Yeah. I
multiple
wonder,
sites, computers, IPs, whatever.
right, interesting. Like, I wonder, I mean, is this where, is Salesforce going to be okay? I mean, I'm just thinking of what's the other biggest thing on the internet deployed by semi-average people, because I would say Salesforce is
Yeah.
generally deployed by a Salesforce administrator, um, or someone in that vein. And I don't know that those people, I mean, I'm sure they're great at their jobs, but I don't know if they always have the best training for security and safety around the data that
Yeah.
they accept.
Yeah. And that's another thing I worry about is as these hacks and other things get more sophisticated, your
Mm-hmm.
average run of the mill system administrator doesn't hasn't kept up with or doesn't know how to mitigate
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. And that's definitely scary. That's
Mm.
so,
You already start to see that with hospital systems and school systems
yeah.
and
Yeah. And which have data that people want. And
Mhm.
that's scary too, as I think about how much data there is. And that's fine, but like securing it and keeping it safe, as a kind of tying back to something we talked about, is like the responsibility you have to the people who've given you their trust.
Yeah.
That, what do you do with that trust, and are you a good steward of their data? So something that is making me angry, and I'm still deciding what to do about it. I live in Philadelphia, which I will mention all the time. And I got a letter that from the city of Philadelphia that said, "Hey, Pam, Sally, we want to let you know that last year, 2023, we had," this is literally the letter, is we discovered that we had unauthorized users with access to our systems in May 2023. And then the next sentence was, and we discovered that the unauthorized users had access to that system. And then the dates were after when they knew there was an unauthorized actor.
Hmm.
So the city of Philadelphia knew that someone who wasn't supposed to have access to my data had access to my data and other citizens of Philadelphia. And then they didn't do anything about it or whatever. I don't work in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then they had access to my data and other citizens of Philadelphia for multiple months. And I just got the usual. So this is the thing about that there's so much more so many more breaches, is I believe that been desensitized to that letter you get in the mail that
Yeah.
says, what I'm talking about. You get the letter in the mail that says, "Hey, just letting you know we had an unauthorized data breach, and here's your 3 months of credit monitoring of something that you don't fucking want." And the city of Philadelphia, like, I can't unsubscribe to the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like, I live here. And it, I'm still pondering. I don't know what to do. I'm really upset. And like so I did contact my council person, and
Mhm.
because I wanted to confirm, because I honestly thought maybe call back, maybe ChatGPT wrote this letter and it got the dates wrong.
Oh gosh.
Because surely you're not writing me a letter telling me that you knew that someone had access to the system and then telling me that they had access to that system after you knew. Surely you're
Mhm.
not telling me that. So I don't know. I don't know what to do about it. I'm
I
just
don't
just
know
be
that
real
there's
mad.
much you can do besides
Be real
make
mad.
your voice know and like this isn't cool.
It's not cool. And like I don't need credit monitoring because my credit's all frozen and I already have credit monitoring. Like everything's already set up. I
Yeah.
don't need your free credit monitoring. Like I don't want your free credit monitoring. I want you to care about taking
Or you
care
to
of my
just have
data.
better security. Yeah.
I want you to
And
be
not
better.
hold my data
Yeah. And that's,
openly. Yeah.
yeah, when my criticism is I want you to be better, it's like I don't know what to do. Have you
I mean,
tried
it gets hard. Yeah.
being better?
I
Next
had a
startup
manager that
idea.
complained about that once. It's just like, you're not doing good enough here. You need to be better. Like,
It's
what does that
horrible
mean
feedback.
exactly?
It's the worst
Yeah.
feedback. It's not useful. Yeah, it's like I want you to have you considered trying harder. That's so unhelpful. Oh, wow. I so is there I love chatting with you. I think you're so interesting and so funny. I love hearing you talk about stuff. Is there any are there any projects or anything that you're working on lately that you'd like to hype as we close out? Anywhere that you live on the internet, people can follow you, maybe a blog, whatever's.
Yeah.
I've heard about Noster. Anyway, other social media you're on since X is dead. Anyway,
I'm typically Geeky Girl Sarah everywhere, including I have not deleted the Twitter/X account yet.
the bird
I
site.
don't
Yeah,
really use it, but it's still there technically.
yeah,
Um, uh, I am on Mastodon. I'm on Blue Sky, even though I've kind of like backed away from social media. Like it's still there. I still occasionally look at it, but I haven't really
yeah,
posted much. But
yeah.
I'm on the things.
You're
Uh
findable.
yeah. My other main project. It's called Code Thesaurus. It's a open
Hmm.
source polyglot developer reference tool, so you can look at a language you know and the language you don't know side by side, and kind of help you either learn or pick up holes in your knowledge or whatever. That's still being actively developed. It's been kind of funny that we talked about AI because people are like, "Oh, Chat GPT will just replace that," and I'm like, "There's still places where like it won't replace it, or you can't use it at work, or whatever."
It's
So I'm like, I'm
also
not taking my tool down yet. It's still very
no,
useful.
I think I love Code Thesaurus. It's so cool, and I also think that another missing thing when anyone gives you that kind of feedback is it's so computationally inefficient to ask a large language learning model to do the same thing
Yes.
over and over again when you can just look at a reference. And
Yes.
yeah, it is a very terrible use of AI or a large language learning model to look something up where there is an easy to find reference. Like that's where Code the Source is great. And yeah, where I can, I'm often jumping between languages, and so I can jump from one to another and look like,
Mhm.
oh, how do I do like this basic logic pattern, and I can see it in Code the Source. So
Yeah.
super
And
handy.
so I'm also prepping up for Hacktoberfest. So every
Yeah,
October,
Hacktober.
big open source celebration where lots of people make open source contributions, and I try to participate every year. So
Yeah.
getting ready to prep it up for the. I feel like on average 20 pull requests a year, except October, and then in October I'm getting like
Woo.
70. So it's.
Is anyone giving swag for Hacktoberfest this year? Or I think like
I don't
DigitalOcean
know.
used to,
I
but
haven't went and looked. So
yeah. But it's just like a cute thing that people do and a
yeah.
good way to test out getting involved in open source. And yeah, your project is a great front. Like it's a like some projects are good front doors to open source and some are less good. And I think yours is very good. So
I
we'll leave
try.
it.
Yeah.
Say it that way. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.